Shri Sathguru Namaha. Ravi and Nitya have invited me and asked me to speak now. Who I speak, I tell you who I am, what I am doing. So I am a disciple of Sri Sathguru Swami Gnanananda Sarasvathi. Sri Sathguru was a householder. She had an ordinary life just like anybody else. And she was a householder. She was like anybody else, a mother of children. She had 5 children. She lived on the surface of it an ordinary life. But, namaskar. Please do sit down.
May I come?
Please. On the surface of it, Sathguru was another householder. She took part in all the activities that a householder would. But from her childhood, Sri Sathguru was extremely conscious of the presence of Sri Krishna in her life. There were some miraculous incidents which told her family that she was not an ordinary person, but that did not, they heard it, they felt, they saw the difference, but then they forgot about it, and life just went on like that. Sri Sathguru in her 20s began being more conscious of the presence of God in her life, and she sought to augment it and make it more. So what Sathguru would do is she would get up earlier than before and meditate. So normally if she had 5:30, she would have to be bathed and ready to start the day's cooking and do all the work of a householder. She would get up by 3:30, so she would have about 2 hours of meditation before that. And then start the day and live an ordinary life just like anybody else. In due course of time, however, people began feeling her strength, her magnetism, her power, and by the time she was 30, she was advising people about their spiritual life and about their difficulties in life. Because after all of us do have difficulties in life, and our natural tendency is to turn to a person who is religious or whom we have faith in to guide us. Here in this case, Sathguru was not known to be very religious at that time when she was 27, 28. But people had a need to talk with her about their problems and to ask her for solutions for it. Then after that, a saint who was visiting that area told her that she had a duty towards God, and her family should not stand in the way, and that she should do more intense tapas, and after attaining what she would attain, she would have to teach it. About 15 years later, or 20 years later, Sathguru took sannyasa when she was 45. Sathguru is a very publicity shy person. Sathguru carries on. She said when the first book of hers was released, she said it's a song that matters, not the singer. You don't have to think about me, think about what I'm teaching you. And Sathguru used to alternate her life between periods of meditation and tapas when she wouldn't meet anybody, and periods of activity when she would meet people and advise them and show them the way to God. So some of those talks have been collected. Only some of them we have with us, we collected them, and they are all made into little booklets. When you are leaving, Ravi will give you some of them. And Sathguru's teaching is of dynamic surrender. Normally we think of surrender as something being passive, but Sathguru's teaching is dynamic. Sathguru says that with every action we should seek God. Sathguru has been very devoted to Sri Krishna, the Gita and the Bhagavatam all throughout her life. She is also a student of the Advaita philosophy and follows that, though she has great respect for the other two darshanas also. So Sathguru says that the importance of the Gita is that he talks about self-transformation. So I have been a disciple of Sadhguru's for the past 35 to 40 years. And I have been serving her and listening to her talking because I was serving her directly with her. So I heard her talking with people and explaining her teachings to them, guiding them. So I am soaked, so to speak, in her teaching. So even if I have been, I feel I am a dull student, I don't know anything else. So therefore, all I heard was Sadhguru's teachings, all I read was the Gita and the Upanishads. So therefore, I have absorbed her teachings. So about 10 years ago, some of us decided that we should get together and do something about Sadhguru's philosophy, which is so very practical and so easily practiced. So then we started this Vishnu Mohan Foundation. Vishnu Mohan was a senior disciple who has passed away and who was very devoted to Sadhguru and the philosophy of self-transformation. So, taking the lead from the way he used to teach us, we decided to spread Sadhguru's teachings. And my coming here to Bangalore, having this program, Stay Connected with Krishna, all this is part of our activities of trying to make Sadhguru's teachings more well known to a larger number of people. Now, I had given Ravi some thoughts on the names of some talks which I have given earlier, and he chose one. So I'm not going to give you exactly the whole talk as I gave it earlier. I gave it in the International Women's Association in Chennai, and I'm just condensing it because of lack of time. So I'm not going to tell you everything. It is, where was your mind when you saw it last? So normally, we say that if something is missing, they ask, where was it when you saw it last? So, where was your mind when you saw it last? So, most of us, we think we know what the mind is, we think we know in which way, the mind can be controlled. We think that we know most about these things. But the mind is something very different. It's something very difficult to control. It's something very difficult to understand. But it is something which belongs to us. The mind belongs to us. So therefore, since the mind belongs to us, just like we control our hands, our feet, our sight and all that, we should control our mind also. The Sanskrit word is antakarana, the internal organ. So it's just like anything, it's like the hands and the feet, it belongs to us. But we don't know, we think of the mind as something normal, something small, part of our lives. But the mind is something which can make or break us. The Upanishad says, Mana eva manushyanam karanam bandha mokshayo bandhaya vishaya saktam muktaye nirvishaya svatam. The mind for the human race is the cause of either bondage or liberation, either happiness or unhappiness. Bandhaya vishaya saktam. When it thinks about things of the world and things which the objects of sense, that is, things we see, things we hear about, things we know about, when it starts thinking about those things and gets bound to it, not when it thinks about it, that's perfectly okay. But when it starts getting bound to it, then it binds us. And when it doesn't remember these sense objects, then it frees us. Now you can ask me.
If you are conscious of, supposing I know I'm losing my temper
Yeah.
for something very silly, like something at home has been misplaced or something of that matters to me. And I'm conscious, okay, oh, I'm losing my temper. Does that help?
See, the consciousness of something which is not a desirable trait is the first step. Then what are you going to do about it? That is the second step. That's the most important. That is the sankalpa. What is your decision about that? Are you going to do something about it? Or are you going to feel bad about it and forget about it? Or are you going to want to do something about it and try to do something about it even if you fail? Something, see, for example, your cook. Your cook wastes oil. That makes you angry. So you go there and shout at the cook. Then you come back and your mood is spoiled. There are some very remarkable people. I remember one person. She fought to the cook for 1.5 hours and then she came out, washed her face and she said, all the neighbors must have heard the fun. So she was so cool about it. I mean, she was, but all of us cannot be like that. Some of us come out and we carry that burden with us. We come back, our day is spoiled, the morning is spoiled. So, what do you do about it? When you come out, you feel, I shouldn't have shouted so much, it's spoiled my mood. If I shout at the cook too much, the cook will go away. All these thoughts will come in your mind. So then what are you going to do about it? One thing is, you forget about it, you feel bad about it, you forget about it. Like next day, cook does the same thing, again you get angry, again you shout. So what do you do about it? Next day you keep a note in your mind. I have done this wrong, I shouldn't do it. Next time you feel like shouting at the cook, you may shout at the cook. But you, in your consciousness, this mental block has come that it's a wrong thing to have done. The most powerful instinct which we have is the instinct of self-preservation. If we think something is good for us, then we go to any length to get it. If we think something is going to hurt us, then we will feel that we should avoid it. If we think that it's something which is going to bring us problems, then again we will try to avoid it, we will try to remove it from our lives. So now what happens is that you identified in your mind that shouting at the cook is a... I'm not saying that you do shout at the cook, this is just an example, analogy. So, we think, so in the mind that has registered that losing my temper, cook is not the best temper, it's going to hurt me. Automatically the mind will pull back. When you go there, mind will pull back, whether I should shout or not. Then your impulses, your feelings can push you forward and you may go and shout at the cook again. But again, after that when you feel, you think, oh, I decided not to, so then the block towards that becomes bigger, stronger. Alternately, you tell yourself straight away the being itself, if you are strong enough, which most of us are, you straight away say that, you straight away say we are not going to do it again. You straight away say that this is something which is not good for me, I will not do it again. But there's a very small number of people, I wouldn't say even a handful of people who can have that absolute control over myself. Today, I will stop doing it and stop doing it like that. There are a few people who can do it, but generally not. Am I clear?
Yeah.
No. Not entirely clear. There's something inside.
Yeah.
Tell me.
The thing is that, okay, I get conscious of it. I work on my consciousness the first time, the second time. Then I tell myself,
it becomes more difficult.
I tell myself, okay, that thing is material, so it is not important. But there is a particular point, I'm not able to snap out of that, okay, it is not important, and or should I keep them in control?
See, what you should do is keep them in control without and keep
Take
yourself
that
in control.
example of, yeah.
Keeping yourself also in control.
Yes,
Mm.
yes, that is more.
So, when you go and tell the cook, you say without upsetting yourself.
Yes, okay.
So you have to keep yourself in control. So now, we said Bandaya Vishaya Sakta. It's bound when it gets attached to things around it, things that it sees. The mind gets conscious of things through sight, through hearing, through touch, through smelling, through taste. These are 5 ways in which we can get conscious of something, and then we could get, attached to it or have antipathy to it. So, and he says, Muktaye Nirvishaya Smritam. See, normally if we like something, the mind will go back to it. The rasam we had today in the morning was nice, so we think of, again, in the evening or, sometime in the day, we think, the rasam was good, and then we think about other rasams we had, the mind goes like that. So, and the attachment to rasam becomes more, because we've had it now, we thought about it, we've analyzed it, and we thought put it in our, slaughter it in our mind as something good. So we want it again. We aren't able to, think of the rasam, it's a good thing, yes, it was nice, and okay, now the other things in life, let me get on. In the mind that tendency comes. Now, Krishna says in Gita, Dhyayato Vishayan Pumsha Sam. Now, so what I am saying is that it's not that you shouldn't think of things, but you shouldn't keep on thinking, going back towards it, because that means you are attached to it. So Krishna explains how this happens. It's a very nice passage, and even Gorbachev, when he came to India, he remarked on it. It's a very practical passage. He says, thinking of things, Dhyayato Vishayan Pumsha Sangat Desha Pajayate. Now, what is Sangam? So, thinking about some things, we get Sangam towards it. Sangam is association. Now, everything is known through association. We cannot see the thing in itself, by itself. We think of it as being in association with something else. So, Dhyayato Vishayan Pumsha Sangat Desha Pajayate. We think of an object, we think of it in association with something else. So these are the 2 difficulties which will always be there in our life. One is raga, attraction, liking. The other is dvesha, not liking. So any object which we see, if we have to associate with it for a longer period, there are things which we don't think about, which we don't associate ourselves with, and we don't, because they are not part of our lives. But anything which is part of our life, we start thinking of it as either good or bad. We slot it. Dhyayato Vishayan Pumsha Sangat Desha. Association comes with it. Then, after that, what happens? We start thinking of it in relation with this. We associate with good, I don't like this, I like this. I is more important. That I comes out from that I don't like this. That dislike fuels the feeling of I, and I becomes important. When I comes up, then action comes. Then after there's action. Sangat Sanjayate, from this association of an object with you. Sanjayate Kamat Krodho Vijayate. Either you decide you won't like it. If you like it, then you decide to possess it. You associate yourself with it. You think of it as belonging to me, as something I like. So therefore, since I want it, since it's something which I like, I must own it. Since it's something I like, I must have access to it. Since it's something like I like, then it belongs to me and preferably not to anybody else. That's the next stage. Kama, Krodha, Vijayate. Either you like it. If you like it, okay. Otherwise, if you don't like it, then you don't. Then Krodha, anger comes. Why is this here? If you like something and you don't get it, then anger comes. So two ways anger comes. Either due to Dvesha, or you don't like it, or because it is Raga which is not fulfilled. So therefore anger comes. Then he says, Sangha Sanjayate Kama, Kama Krodho Vijayate, Kromodat Bhavati Samoha. Now when we come to this second stage of desire, that is, I must have it or I get angry. I don't like it, so I must get angry. Samoha, you get totally deluded. We become not only deluded, we stop seeing things in its proper perspective. That is the main thing about being deluded. We don't see things as they are. We don't think that this because I don't like this, I don't like this person, because of that, they should not exist, that they should move out of my life. There's no logic in that. But then somehow we are not able to see clearly, we are not able to think. So therefore we will think foolishly, we will think harshly, we will not be sensible human being. Then from Mohana comes the loss of Smriti, for remembering. We see all around the world. We see difficulties, and after that we commit same mistakes. Why? Because at that point, because we are deluded. I remember once, long ago, when I was a boy, there was very interesting news item. A man came out of his house, past the bus stand. He slipped and fell down on the ground. He slipped and fell down on the ground, and another person there, standing there, laughed. This man got so angry, he went inside his house, took a knife and stabbed this man. Now, the man who was stabbed, Krodha has possessed him. Sammohanam, he is fully deluded. Instead of trying to rush to the hospital and get himself, saved, he pulls out the knife and stabs that man. So, Krodhat bhavati sammoha. Fully you get deluded. Sammoha smriti brahmsha. Smriti brahmsha buddhinasha. We can't think clearly. The intellect stops working. Only the instincts work. Buddhinasha pranashati. You get destroyed.
Yeah, it's very difficult to forgive.
Very difficult.
In fact, all thing sometimes it's very difficult to forgive for very material things.
Yes. Sometimes, that loss of that material thing, or that material thing being imposed upon us, because we don't want it, but somebody else more powerful than imposes it on us. That's something because it's an attack on our very self-being, of our asmita. That I am me, and you have made me do what I don't want. So that is the personality is being attacked. So this is how it is. We think of something, sangha, this thought, that makes us make these. Because raga and dvesha are two horses pulling us in two directions. While Krishna says later, Gita, he says, raga dvesha viyukta istu. Having unyoked, removed those two horses, raga and dvesha. Vishayan indriyesh charan, who moves, deals with all the things around him. He sees something, he sees it. He doesn't say, I will not see it. He will not think, I will not hear it. He hears it, but the sense of owning is not there. The sense that I want like this, I want it, is not there. The sense that I don't like this, it should not exist, that also is not there. Atma Vasyed, who's self-controlled, Videya Atma, he is freed. Prasadam Adhigacchati, he gets peace in his life. He gets God's grace. Both. You can take prasada either way. So, for that, the mind has to be controlled. And the mind has to be known what's the nature of the mind. The nature of the mind is to be flitting like a butterfly from one thing to another. It goes from one thing to another. There's one example which I give everywhere wherever I go. Nalini, just come. Give that to somebody else. So now you think of something. You think of something. Anything. Anything. Something which you can. Okay? Now you're thinking of something, an object. Because you tell me after 2 minutes. 1.5 minutes. What do you think? Don't hold out that object in your mind. Let your mind go later. This is an experiment which I've done in many places. I did in Royal College where I was doing a presentation on Muslim. I did it in Gujarat University. I did it in Madurai. Wherever I go, I do this because this is something which very reveals to people what their mind. Purposely talking as well, the mind will get disturbed. Kaushik, thank you. Now tell us, what do you think of first, at the beginning?
An apple, and then water,
Okay.
and then this rangoli, and then finally I started singing the song which I like the most, my favorite artist, and that's still there.
So you see how it is. See how the mind is. The mind has got no discipline. It's got no this of its own. It jumped from an apple, it went to orange, into water. From water, it went to rangoli. From rangoli, it went to it's a song. And because the song has got a, has got a structure which remains in her mind, she didn't stop singing the song. Otherwise, from that song, it had gone to the artist who sang the song, then what that person looks like, what they were wearing in the video which we saw last, like that the mind will go. So for that, we have to. How many?
25 minutes.
For that, we have to learn to culture the mind, we have to refine the mind. So, there are 2 or 3 ways in which Sathguru says the mind has to be refined. One is that we don't reject thoughts which come to our mind. We let the thoughts come. But we step away from the thoughts. These thoughts are coming because of various things. She saw the apple in front of her, she saw the water here, she saw the rangoli, all these things puts into her mind. So she thought about it. So she is not responsible for those thoughts, they came. So similarly, when thoughts worry us, we don't have to think about them, think that they are ours. We can move away from them. These are just responses to the situations around us, responses to memories which we have. All these thoughts generally are all like that. They are responses to various situations, to things around us, to the memories that we have, to the wishes we want, the aims we have, the ambitions, all these things. They like a ball which is thrown on the mind, and then it looks as though the mind is throwing the ball. But actually it's just a reaction. There's no action in the mind, it's reaction. So what Sathguru says is that instead of holding the mind and trying to take it away from things, Sathguru says substitute it with the thought of God. And think about God. Not all the time. See, what does Krishna say? What does Upanishad saying? Upanishad said that it's free when it doesn't hold on to the object of what is. So you are going and you are talking with the cook. You are explaining to the cook she mustn't waste oil. Then certain reactions happen. Then when you come out of the kitchen, don't carry that. We should not be bound, that's what he says. When we don't think of those things, when we don't absorb our mind with those things, we come out from the kitchen, leaving the things of the kitchen in the kitchen. So, yeah. Please.
So body is an object that has been, many objects that have been taken away from you. And every time something or they're taken away by a person. So every time you see something, it keeps going back to those objects that have been taken away from you. And the anger keeps coming back. You are not able to forgive that person, and neither are you able to curse that person. Because you know cursing is not good. So either way, you're not getting relief.
I know.
So this kind of thing, okay, you said first become conscious. Then you start telling yourself, I am reacting badly. And then you start thinking about God. Okay, for me it will be the universe. So I'll think about the universe and then it seems so small. So it's coming, but there are many things that keep reminding you of, and then you find yourself in this crux. You can't curse, you can't forget.
See, this is the problem. Because the bad people have no problem. They can be as bad as they want, they won't feel, they go to sleep nice. The very good people, they won't do anything wrong, they sleep well. It's only, we people who are in the middle, we want to be good, we can't be good.
Yeah.
We are the ones who suffer. Sathguru asked one small question. Are you going into tomorrow carrying the burdens of 1,000 yesterdays? Are you going into tomorrow carrying the burdens of 1,000 yesterdays? Not necessarily. We don't have to carry these burdens. But we carry it because it's there in our mind. There are things which remind us. And because, so what is the Upanishad saying? Nirvishaya smritam. You don't remember it. You see things which remind you of injustice done to you. What you do is you take it and put it aside. Mentally you take it. See what Krishna gives another line. He says, from whatever manas chanchalam astiram. The mind is chanchalam, it is restless, astiram, it will not stay in one place. But from wherever your mind goes, bring it back under your control, he says. So, you are not going to let the mind sit in the driving seat. You drive the car of your mind. You drive it yourself. Don't let that. You put on autopilot and let it go where it wants. Because it may go to the wrong place also. So when we carry the burden of 1,000 yesterdays, it's a burden to us. When we just leave something, okay, I'm not going to think about it anymore. And okay, let's have an end to something. I personally have an end to something, then you feel free.
Yes.
There's a sense of freedom which comes when we don't think about your difficulties of yesterday. Take it and leave it off, then good night's sleep follows.
Could you follow any practice like saying mentally, okay, I'm going to burn it? It is like something they do in pranic healing. They say, okay.
Now, generally the example I give is,
yes.
You are a mother of a child. You brought up the child when it was 1 year and 2 years. It sat in the middle of the room, you put it in the middle of the room under the fan so it won't sweat, and so let it play. It got up and went to the corner. It started crawling that side. So what did you took it and brought it and kept it back under the fan. So, the mind is a baby running away. Bring it and put it under the fan of God's grace. That's all. Mentally you think of it like that. The mind is moved away. When you meditate, it's think like that. It's going away, you will catch it and bring it back. Sometimes these mental play acting of these things, it helps a lot. It helps us a lot when you play act these things. Because we are living it. Because we live in a world of activity. So if we are going to think of abstract things, it's difficult. But we think of something which is an activity, we get involved in it. Like children, you say that this thing, what's that thing? Curly hair, very fair, eyes are blue, teachers better, you teach it and then they act it out. So then it goes into their mind better. So similarly, we tell ourselves these things, that this is, I'm taking the mind is running out of the room, I'm taking it and bringing it back, it's going to sit here, sit down here, there will be nice things for you to play with, think about God, and then So are we going into tomorrow carrying the burden of 1,000 yesterday's? Why should we? See, Krishna, when he was talking about being hurt, he said, he was a warrior who had a lot of arrows also, talking to another warrior. He said, the arrows which are shot upon us don't hurt us so much as the sharp arrows of people's words. That stay in our hearts is very difficult to get rid of. That we remember again and again. The insulter insults and goes on his way. But we stay holding that hurt in us. It's very difficult. There are people who keep things for 40 years, 50 years, because that insulter not only insulted, he made things difficult for us. And so when we think of that person, we think by association the harm he's done to me. Because he and me, the relationship, we are always seeing things in relation to ourselves. It's not, see, you won't think of X as X. You will think of him as how he relates to you, how he behaved to you. You are not going to think of it any other way. Because your world starts and begins with yourself. It's very rarely that we are able to stand away from the situation and say, this is nothing to do with me. Even if they have behaved badly with me, they have got this. How do we normally think? He's got these good qualities, he does this, he does that, but he's a very harsh person. I remember he did this too. That's how we think. Because our world starts with us. Our world starts with us. So what we have to do is change that focus from ourselves onto God. In your case, the universe. So, what happens is that we see that when we look at other people's sufferings, what generally happens? Sathguru always gives this example. Consider other people's sufferings and then look at yourself. It depends on how you're going to. I remember I told one person, he said that it's 1.5 months I'm without a job, I'm feeling very bad, I'm very, very upset. I look at the other person there, he's 6 months without a job. He's cheerful. He's looking at, but he's cheerful. Does that mean that I have to be 6 months without a job? Is that the meaning of what you're saying? Are you looking into my future and telling me I have to be 6 months without a job? How do you help such a person? You can't. You're trying to show him that the difficulties can be borne, easily, without unhappiness. But then, only thing he's thinking is that my problem, my world starts with me, ends with me. My world starts with me, may end with my children, my wife. But ultimately, there was one person I heard of recently. His son went and told him, Amma tried to commit suicide last night. She is in the ICU. He looked at him like that and he said, that means the raisins have not been soaked in water for me to have. Then my bowels will not move tomorrow morning. You go and do it immediately. Very practical man is looking at himself. That the wife is trying to kill herself, and he would have had his reasons. We don't know what his wife was like, but this is his first reaction. If she has tried to commit suicide this morning, then the raisins have not been soaked in water.
But that's actually true in a lot of. This is a dramatic sense.
I was quite surprised, impressed. He's able to have that detachment.
But you've answered me, Swamiji. Thank you. You've answered.
So, how do we have to keep control of the mind. How do we keep control of the mind? It's by keeping one object to think of, which will come back to. Your case, since you're an astronomer, you bring it back to the sky is what you saw. So what happens is that when we have a central object, whether it is idea or whether it is a, God, or whether it is a philosophical concept, whatever it is, then we are able to transcend difficulties. We are able to hold the mind in control. Now there was a philosopher called Epictetus. He was a Roman, he was a slave. And even though he was a slave, he was a great philosopher. He could think and analyze things, and he had a great amount of detachment. And the fact that even though he was a slave, many people came to see him, upset his master. So his master used to be violent towards him. And one day he was twisting his arm. So he said, if you twist it anymore, it's going to break. So this man said, oh, this is your philosophy, you're so detached. So he said, I'm only talking about cause and effect. You twist, it will break. This is the cause, this is the effect. He twisted, it broke. The man, he was a rishi practically. He just said, I told you it will break. So the master was so impressed with his detachment that he freed him and let him go on his way. But because why was that? Because he had that teaching which he later gave the world. It is bear and forbear. Bear with all the difficulties which come to us because of rain or circumstances which are not in our control. And forbear. Forgive people who are doing things out of ignorance. So that was the central point of his life, that philosophy, that idea. He did have some ideas on God, but this philosophy was what transformed him and changed his attitude. So that is something which each of us need to have. We need to have a central point which we come back to. And that should not be ourselves. That shouldn't be. Now central point we come back to. We come back to the central point. That is me. What is going to be? What am I going to be fed with? What am I going to do? All that comes back to that. Instead of that, we choose, if we are religious, an Ishtadeva, a form, appeals to us. We think of that and we bring our mind back to it. Now, it doesn't mean that you come out of the world. You live in the world, but you see it in the light of God. Sathguru said, if you use something, a pen or anything like that, you put it back in its place, then you will have no difficulty finding it. With the mind, the resting place for the mind is God's feet. So you use your mind, you think of various things, you analyze things. The mind has always so much about it. Let it do all its work, but after that let it come back to God's feet. When it comes back to God's feet, then it has a resting place, it has peace. And so what happens is that instead of fighting the mind, that I will not let you think of these things, I will think of these things, I will think of everything. But after that I will come back to God. This is where it belongs. So then the mind gets trained, and then thought becomes easier. So when the central point is not ourselves but God, or a philosophical tattva, then what happens is that one is able to see the world with different eyes. One is able to see the world with different eyes. Now this matter about keeping the mind back, that is something which is very important in Sathguru's teachings. So I've been saying it, I think, 6 times in the past 3 days. So, because it's so practical. So, when we think, we hear of the poet saint, Bilba Mangalam, we heard, I think, of Sarasvathi. He was so besotted with his wife that he crossed a river and spit and went back to her. So, because that was the central point of his life. So anything can be sacrificed for that. So, normally what we say is anything can be sacrificed for myself. But here what the central point is God. So you come back to that. When you come back to that, you are able to go through the forest of the world. Everything is around you. But you look at it with different eyes. You look at it with a different viewpoint. Is this something which is going to be pleasing to God? Is this something which is going to be in accordance with His ideas? Are we doing something which God likes, or are we doing something which we like? So we are able to evaluate our actions. Now the beginning effort is required. We have to do these actions consciously. That when we do something, is it the right thing, is it the wrong thing? Now, according to Upanishad, until we attain liberation, always this doubt will be there, have I done the right thing or the wrong thing? But in our own level, to the extent which we are making effort, these things become automatic. Mind likes routine, so automatically. So what happens is that automatically, this is something we cannot do. This is something which we can do. The mind starts dividing things. When the mind starts dividing things, it is not divided into, this is something which I like, this is something which is in my interest. This is not. It's divided into from a different perspective. Actions become more detached. And so they are more efficient also. Because the actions are not decided on a moment of anger, it's not decided in a moment of, desire. This is something which is good for me, so I do it. This is the better thing to do, so I do it. So when we act like that, then we become more efficient. And the mind, which is a wild horse, slowly comes into control. So this is basis of all religion. All religion is about realigning ourselves from an instinctual mind, a mind which acts because of its likes and dislikes, to a mind that sees things as it is. We see something as white, blue, green. We don't see it as a color I don't like, a color I like, and a color which I care about. Now that's the way we think. But when the mind is trained, the mind is uplifted, then the mind is going to see things as it is, the thing in itself, not the thing which we think it is. So then we know where the mind is. So where was the mind when we saw it last? The mind was in God's feet. Why? Because it's not going round and around. The Upanishad compares the mind. I hope no one will get upset about it. Many people, Arun Shawari was frothing in the mouth when he said, this is the way you degrade the human mind. Upanishad said that the mind is a stray dog. The mind is a dog on the road which goes to every dustbin possible. So, yes.
I got a doubt.
Yes.
How do you reconcile a person's normal desire of any person for action with expectation of reward? With Krishna saying, Karma nevadikarte ma krishipada. Falesh kadachana.
It is just coming to terms with reality. We work with this in mind. But the thought of the reward alone does not, motivate us. It is not oriented to, our minds are not oriented to the reward, but towards the action, to doing it purposefully and doing it with a full mind, what they call mindfully, with this God. But yes, it is dharmic. He says dharmic desires, I am those desires which are in consonance with dharma. So he allows that. But what he says is, don't get yourself tied up with something which you have no control about. When suppose you go and sit in a car, you think it's your car, you go and sit in a car there, and then it's somebody else's car, and that man has parked in the wrong place and gets towed away, you get towed away also. So, similarly, what is in our hands? The action with the hope that it will give us a benefit. there's nothing wrong in wanting things. There's nothing wrong in asking God for things. Because if we don't ask God, who can we ask?
The
So
motivation will be there only if the reward is there.
the motivation will be there in a purer form, that the reward will come to us. We want the reward to come to us, but it's not going to break my heart if it doesn't come to me. See, you're not getting into somebody else's car which can be towed away. You're sitting in your own car. And you are driving your own car. You're not sitting in the car which is being towed away. So
Whatever result comes is a prasad, that's all. Whatever result comes is a prasad. You have to accept it, that's all. Should not go saying, I have tried for this, I did not get it. I mean, that feeling should not be there. That is what you are...
yes, that's what I'm saying. Because
it should be accepted as a prasad. That is it, Bhagavan's desire, that is like that.
yes,
Something which is beyond your control.
yes.
But you have to...
Those things which are not
making
done.
effort is in your hand.
Making effort is in our hands. Hoping for a good result, that's also in our hands.
Right.
Breaking up when it doesn't happen like that, that is something in our hands. We can also control ourselves and not get disappointed.
But you should not regret over what has happened.
Yes. So if the maths results are not as good as you thought it would be,
Because those are...
you don't have to break your heart over it.
Yeah, that's it.
Somebody breaks the heart.
You can't dictate.
So this is how it is. The mind, we know where it is. Otherwise the mind keeps going about like everywhere. Wherever it sees something interesting, yes.
What is the implication of sarvadharman paritijya mamekam samanvite? Amta sarvapapebhyo raksheshya vimamsya. What is the implication of this sloka?
I just finished this part and come back to it. Because that requires 20 minutes. So, I mean, it requires a whole lifetime, but I will try to tell you what I learned in 20 minutes. So, so the mind goes everywhere. It goes anywhere it can. So what we do is we bring it back. So Sathguru said, take that stray dog, train it and make it into a wonderful watchdog. So that mind stands outside there and protects you from any dangers. The mind tells you when something is wrong, when something is right. So what is a stray dog going to the dustbin? Train it, keep it well, feed it well with good things, and so then it will be a watchdog protecting you. That's what Sathguru said. So this is what is a very simple thing. Where was your mind when you saw it last? Anywhere. Where can it be? It can be at God's feet. It can be looking after us. The mind can be there protecting our interests, looking after us. According to how we treat it, what we do with it. So now about Sarvadharman Parityajya, you must keep in mind that it is the second last verse of the Gita. I'm sorry, it's the last verse of the Gita. So, after that there are some verses. It's not, nobody has to leave down a hurry. So, he says in the Gita, we'll just trace those verses from 60 to 66. He says, Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam, from there it starts. God exists, He lives in the hearts of all beings. I say continuously say Sanskrit slokas, it will be boring for younger people. So, He lives in the hearts of all beings, causing it to move by His Shakti. Maya here is in a positive state. It is, there are two forms of Maya, positive and negative. Here it is positive. And here He gives us the purpose of doing things. Otherwise, if the Maya is not there, we won't feel like doing things. So, then he says, Tameva Sharanam Gacha, Sarva Bhavena Bharata. Take refuge in Him, Bharata, with every action of yours, in every way, with all your heart. Then, what happens when you do that? When you have considered action. You don't have impulsive action. You don't just act because everybody else is doing it. So, you do something. Everybody is buying a t-shirt. So I have to buy it. It's not that. I buy the t-shirt because something necessary. I need to clothe myself. I need those clothes. I like it, so I buy it. That's all there's about it. And Because my considered action is something I can offer to God. So, we offer our actions to God. Serve with all our heart, because with that affection, then Tatparasada, by His grace, you will get great peace. So what happens is that our actions have now been changed. They are not desire-driven actions. They are thought-driven actions. They are thought drives us, not desires. We don't do something because we like it, but because it's the right thing to do, it's the appropriate thing to do. And I like doing it. There's nothing wrong with it. I like doing it, so I do. So then he says, Param Shanti. What happens is that clamor which is going on in our mind, I like this, I don't like this, what will happen, is a worry, all that calms down. The peace which we get, the great peace which he says is not something outside, it's something which comes to us. And when that comes to us, we can attain his feet, which is the highest position, he says. The highest place, the highest abode, you can attain that. Because you are peaceful, you can attain that. Because there is no conflict. Then he says, now I have taught you everything. The most profound things I have taught you. Because when you look at it, the Gita itself, 18 chapters, 700 verses, it's a wonderful book, it's a miraculous thing. So, when that is when he has given that teaching, then he says, see, this is what desire-driven action and thought-driven action. He doesn't say, I took all this trouble and taught you all this, these profound things. You don't even have to do it. Go and fight. He doesn't say that. He doesn't say, I'm older to you, you have to fight. I'm your teacher. He says, Yata ichasi tata guru. What you want, you do. He says. Gives them full freedom. Then he makes a declaration which proclaims his attachment to Arjuna, and through Arjuna, that attachment to all of us, all his creatures. He says, sir, the most profound of these teachings, I tell you once more. I say that to you because I love you very much, because you are very dear to me. This is Krishna's assurance to us that, see, it's not an impersonal God that is indifferent to whatever happens. You hurt yourself, you get up and dust yourself and run. No, he says, hurt yourself, I'll come and help you. He says, Ishtosi me dridamiti, dridam, strongly, he says. Tato vakshyami te etam. So I'll tell you what is good. So now often we see this, they say, I am saying this only for your own good. If you want to follow or not, I don't care. I am saying for your own good. It's not always for the other person's good. It is my conception of what is good for you. It is my conception of what is good for you, and you must follow it. Otherwise, I don't want to see your face again. That is that. But here he says, because I love you dearly, because you are beloved of me, then I am telling you. That is, he wishes well. Earlier he says that hitakamya, because I wish you well, I wish you good fortune. So that's why I am telling you. So he says, I'll tell you this again. And he says, fill your mind with me, be my devotee, prostrate before me, and you will come to me. I promise you this. So this is something which he says. He says, fill your mind with me. So then what happens is the mind is generally vacant. Anything can come and sit. It's open. The doors are open, the windows are open. It can come, it can go. That's what somebody said, that you can have an open mind, but not so open that the winds of all sorts of winds can come, anything can come, and anything can go. So like that, the mind is an open room with all windows. So what he says is, fill your mind with me. This is not because he has got any personal acts to grind. Fill your mind with me. Be my devotee. Relate to me as a person who is receiving from me. As a person who is receiving from me. And not giving me. But the devotee is a person who receives. He does not give. other than his love, his affection, there's little the Guru. Because the Guru is already filled. Because he is already filled with God's grace, he is filling in return. So, Maam Namaskuru. That is, what is Namaskara we say? Comes from the word Idam Namama. This is not for me. So, from that Idam Namama, then when they make offerings there and they say, this offering is for Lakshmi, this offering for Parameshwara, this offering, they say Agni is for Idam Namama, this offering is for Agni, this is not for me. So there is an amount of sacrifice that when we make an offering, we are sacrificing and removing that sense, because our minds are conditioned towards two things always. One is yoga, the other shema. Our minds want to get things. What we don't have, we must get. The things that we have, we must protect. Now this is not only for us. Plants also, it reaches to the sunlight because it's not getting sun, so it reaches to the sunlight. Some plants, there's very little water. It preserves the water. So this is a basic instinct in any creative being, any creative creature has this. Yoga and shema, both all the time is happening. This activity is going on in our minds. Because this activity is going on in our minds, we can't really think properly. Because of that, we are not really free. Because everything is being weighed like this. Am I going to get yoga shema out of it? I won't go too much into this. But he says, Madhyaji, Maam Namaskuru. You surrender your personality to me, then I can look after you. That yoga and that shema I can give you. He is the eternal mind. He is the all-knowing mind. He knows what is good for us and he shall grant us. We know what is, something which we like and we ask for it. So once Krishna and Balarama went inside Yashoda Amma's kitchen and asked for butter. So she was busy. She said, the butter is there, take it and don't come back again. So Balarama took. But Krishna wouldn't take. He's going on standing there saying, no, you give, pulling the sari, give it to me, So then she said, no, I'm busy. She kept telling him off and then he kept insisting. Finally she got angry. She washed her hands, took a handful of butter and put it in both his hands. Then when they went out, Balarama said to Krishna, you're a naughty fellow. There's something behind this. You're a person who goes robbing butter. And now you're saying it has to be given to you. What's happening? So Sri Krishna said, look at my hands, Amma, small hands. Amma's hands are so big. So if I take with my hands, I get only this much. But if Amma gives, I get so much. So similarly, Madhyaji, Maam Namaskuru, we let him take charge of us. Then we go to him. So what happens is that there's nothing holding us here, we go back there. So he fills our hands with butter. Butter is the best part of the milk. So he gives us the best things which we need. Then after that he says, Sarva Dharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharam. Dharma is that Dhareti Dharma, it's the things that support us. So don't think of what is right, what is wrong. Is this, renounce every concept and just think of me alone. When you think of me alone, your support is me only. Then this conflict of what is to be done, what is not to be done, renounce all that and let him support you. Sarva Dharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam. Now, we take refuge in so many things. Okay, we are not able to get this cloth, then okay, we'll buy that cloth. That is the best. We'll manage with that. So we not able to, so then we take refuge in that. So, okay, we are not able to manage anything like this. Let's go to Minster will help us. So we take refuge in the Minster. Everywhere we are thinking of something as being a solution giver, as a person who gives protection. What he says is that, come to me. Because he has more power than all the ministers in the world put together. He's got everything. So we go to him alone, Mamekam Sharanaprasad. Because otherwise half our mind is here, half our mind is there, and nothing is going to happen. We can't do anything effectively. Mamekam Sharanaprasad. Don't need anybody else. Take him alone. Mamekam Sharanaprasad. Then Aham Tva Sarva Papebhyo. So the unhappiness, all these things come through our Papa Karma. That is actions which we have done earlier, which have been done through the prism of a mind which has been filled with anger or desire or greed, all these things, three things which are, coming before us in our minds. So because of that, our actions went through this. So it is stained with those colors. So he says, if you are going to change yourself to this extent that I only matter to you, then you don't exist. So who is the sin? The sin belongs to the sinner. If there is no sinner, he has become part of God. There is nobody there to listen. It's like how, when they call in the court, is he there? There's no one to come and say, yes, I am there. Because he is dead. So similarly, that sinner in us will be dead. And only the devotee in us will exist. So, when we say Mamekam Sharanam Braja, we think of him alone. We don't think of right and wrong, that papa, that punya, we don't think about anything. We don't think of dharma, we don't think of adharma, we just think of Krishna, what he wants we do. What is pleasing to him we do, automatically we do dharma. What is unpleasing to him is not dharma, so we can't do that. So we are changing our focus. The center of gravity is Krishna. Then we are sorrowing over things which we have not got, we thinking. Everything which has a beginning has an end. So therefore, when the end comes, we feel bad. Or we feel bad that something else has not come in its place. Endless cycle, we come out of that. Master said, don't worry about all this. Come out of it and be free. So that is the nutshell what Sathguru says about Sarasvathi. See, is there anything else? Anybody who wants to know? Any other question? Coming in anyone's mind? Then Shri Krishnarpanamastu, Shri Sathguru. Let's sing Mangalam. Now, why do we sing Mangalam? One small thing, just a small takeaway before we go. Why do we sing Mangalam? Mangalam is good fortune. We say, why does Krishna? We sing good fortune for Krishna. We sing good fortune. You can do that. We say, Vijayi Bhava Venkata Shailapate. You say that. Is he going to be non-successful if we don't wish him? He's not. He's going to go on like that only. What happens is that when we say Mangalam for God, when we say wish him good fortune, he is the eternal being. He is the all-pervasive being. So we are identifying with him. And we say everything about ourselves, we are altruistic and all that. But our best wishes are always for ourselves. Krishna Mohan, Sathguru's first disciple, he used to say, convey my best wishes is a myth. No one conveys the best wishes. Best wishes are for ourselves. Second best wishes you can convey. So similarly, we wish the best things for ourselves. So when we say that good things should happen to God, He should be victorious, we are identifying, we are part of Him. We think that we are part of Him. He and us are one. Or we are part of His retinue. He is successful, He is happy, we are also happy. So then we share that. So that is why at the end of everything we say Mangalam. We have done all this. Now we have become part of God and we are part of His retinue, and as He goes victoriously, we will also go victoriously. So that is the meaning of this Mangalam. Shri Sathguru.